Welcome back to Purple Easel Spotlight, where we put the spotlight on artists and creatives. My name's Latoya.
And I'm Megan.
And we're both art instructors here at California's largest paint and sip studio, Purple Easel. So today we're going to be covering Jackson Pollock and, yes,
It always gets a reaction, right?
yes, very controversial. And in fact, I wore a shirt specifically that I want to show y'all. And it says, "But is it art? But is it art?"
We will discuss.
We will discuss. And I also want to speed run through a little bit of his life. I won't say a little bit, actually the whole entire life. So, Jackson Pollock, born.
Yeah.
Dad, alcoholic, also abusive. He moved a lot because his dad was a land surveyor, so they moved from state to state to state. So as a child, he didn't have a very stable home at all. Gets into high school, gets expelled, goes to another high school, gets expelled again. He doesn't like authority a whole lot. He's very chaotic, gets into alcohol as well. So in 1937, he gets psychiatric treatment for his alcohol addiction. And a year later, he was institutionalized for a nervous breakdown. But he didn't show much change within the 4 months that he was in the hospital. However, within that time, he started to create some artwork. However, that artwork didn't really help him mentally. It didn't help him mentally at all. Helped him artistically a little bit, but not
Something, I guess.
not a whole lot mentally. So in the early 1940s, he gets married to an artist, but things are not that great, obviously, because he's an alcoholic and he's abusive. So much so where she had to quit her job and pretty much just take care of him. But then later, he cheated on her, and she was like, "I don't want to do this anymore." And she leaves. And there's a little rundown about his personal life. He does make art and he does sell it, but he always was poverty stricken. He didn't sell anything beyond 10,000, which to me,
Yeah, I'll take it.
yeah, that's fine. But he was just such a bad alcoholic, so bad that he ended up driving his car into a tree, killing himself, a passenger, and his mistress survived. She was thrown outside the vehicle, but she survived. But he dies a poor man, and that's a speed run through his life. And now we'll talk a little bit about his art, which is also a little bit chaotic, and which is why I wanted to talk about his life a little bit.
Yeah, it puts everything in context.
Yeah. The Flame, 1938. What is it, art?
It's something.
It's something. This one I can enjoy a little bit because you could see maybe some struggle, some mental struggle, some anger, some violent tendencies.
It seems like it's reflecting inner turmoil.
Yes, very.
And people could relate to that.
Yeah, I agree. But he's also very noticed but famous for the number one in 1950, also known as Lavender Mist. And but is it art?
Yep.
So the reason why I keep saying this and we keep saying this is because his art style was just the drip art. So where he has a can of paint and you got a string and then you poke the hole at the bottom and you let it swing, or just in general, just him going crazy on the canvas with paint. He got a lot of criticism for that, obviously, because there's no style, there's no technique. And it begs the question, is it art?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's really subjective. And I think in some respects, he has some similarities to Picasso in the sense that he just disregarded everything prior to that.
Yes,
like,
that's true.
Whatever had been established as normal didn't matter to him. So you have to give him credit for that.
Yeah.
And it was the first real instance of physical artistry. So having his canvas on the floor allowed him to move around it and create things from every perspective instead of an easel and a canvas right in front of you, or even like a wall to create a fresco or some sort of scene. So that has merit. And I think I've seen some evolution of that since that is more successful in the traditional sense. But yeah, he doesn't do a lot for me. Like you said, there's not much technique involved. He was an out-of-the-box thinker, so I will totally credit him for that, but they all kind of look the same.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to differentiate not any, but a lot of his work because it looks very similar. And I suppose as a viewer looking at it, you could think about maybe how it makes you feel or the feelings that get invoked within you while looking at it to judge it, I suppose.
Yes.
But yeah, when you're talking about the different versions of what you can do with that kind of style, it makes me think of those really cool those drip paintings where they have like
the acrylic board.
Yeah, the acrylic board would have all the different colors and it's like bleh,
yeah,
and you move it around.
It's an abstract.
Yeah, those are very interesting.
Yeah, and they can be quite beautiful, really. And there's different techniques that are involved in that. So I think that's kind of what I refer to as the evolution. The interesting thing about Pollock is there have been so many, what's the word? People pretending, not imposters.
Oh,
The art term for imposter.
imposter syndrome?
No, it's like right on the tip of my tongue. We'll get back to that. But people trying to pretend that it's a Pollock that they have, an authentic Pollock. And so there's no, but in that vein.
Oh, okay.
There's a word. It doesn't matter. So there have been studies and like computer generated programs to help determine if it's an authentic Jackson Pollock painting.
Oh, really?
Rather than just whatever that word is I can't think of. And they have discovered, and it's like 92% accurate based on his body of work and just analyzing it, but they've discovered there is a sense of calm when you break it down into a fractal sense. They resemble fractals, and fractals are supposed to be pleasing to the eye. And that blows my mind because I do not see anything calm when I look at his work.
Yeah.
So chaotic.
I'm like, what is the computer seeing that I'm not seeing?
But there's something to that, I guess. And to kind of harken back to your question, to me, art is something that elicits a response. And he certainly does that.
Fair.
I don't know what the response is, but it exists.
It's something.
And we're talking about it. And people have been talking about it.
That is
He's
true.
gained so much popularity
Because of his art and the controversy that is his life that surrounds it, I suppose.
Yes, absolutely. So I didn't even know most of that stuff, and I'm familiar with his art. One thing I do find interesting is he stopped naming his paintings at one point. He decided that he didn't want the viewer to infer any sort of special meaning, and so that's when he started numbering them rather than giving him names. He wanted people to take the work at face value, which is like the opposite of every single artist ever.
I'm judging him based off that. I don't know how to feel about that.
All the feels. You feel all the feels. And that's okay. And maybe that makes it art. Forgery. Forgery is the word I couldn't think of. And it's, people basically using his technique to pretend that they're him because it's so simple, easy, accessible, like all those things. So it made it rampant in the art world because anybody could just do it and pretend, hey, look what I got.
I got this. I did this, but it wasn't me.
Yeah, right.
You know what? This goes into the question that I have for you, actually. And the question that I had is, how do you price your art? Because if you're like Jackson Pollock and you just make a bunch of splatters, is it hard to price? You price. How do you know how much effort, how much time, how much experience, how much like what do you calculate into how to price your art, because I feel like it's really, really, really hard. It's a topic that we've had here at Purple Easel, and I didn't know for years until, well, I'll tell you my answer, but go ahead and answer.
Okay. So the easiest way I have figured out is to do it by square inch. And so you still have a little bit of like, you got to figure out how much to charge per square inch. But that way you can at least scale that price up or down depending on the size of the artwork. But whether it takes you 5 minutes or 5 hours, the person who is buying it is paying for your experience as much as anything. And this is something my dad would run into all the time as a plumber. He can go in and know what the problem is immediately, fix it in 5 minutes, and then have to turn around and try to charge them $150. But it's awkward.
Yeah.
But they're paying for his experience.
Yes.
The fact that he's able to come in and do it without even
That's very true.
much consideration. So art in general takes a lot of hours to develop and put yourself into, and it has an emotional toll and a physical toll. We've talked about that too. So you have to consider all those things. And then on top of your like per inch price, whether you're doing $1 per inch or 50 cents per inch, as you get more established, you can start charging more. But then you have to take the price of materials and double it.
Yeah. That's very, very true.
Because you don't want to break even.
That beats the point.
Right.
Yeah. So that's actually pretty good. That's pretty good method.
So as you're answering, maybe you can touch on this. Do you charge more or less for commission work?
And this is why I don't do commission work, because I don't know. I'm like, I don't know. I'll just do it, and then you give me whatever you want. And that's unfortunately been a lot of my methods.
I think that's a lot of artist mentality because they undervalue themselves.
Yeah.
And it goes back to like your expectation of what you wanted to produce versus the final product. It has taken a long time for me to get there, but I think commission work should be more. Because you are going outside of something that you just want to do for funsies and being dictated as to subject matter, style, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And it's oftentimes it's not just, I want this. It's, oh, well, could you do this?
Yeah.
Oh, what if you added this?
I think to my
it's
friend,
a
they
whole
want
process.
this, and now I want it changed because they had a good idea.
Yeah. And so you're either doing or redoing or making sketches to get approved or whatever it is, and you're adding all this time and effort. And I think commission work should cost more.
Yes.
So when you're commissioning artwork, do not be surprised if it costs a little bit, but you're getting what you want that way.
Yes. And with commission work, at least, okay, so I have two different methods. With commission work, I try to think about how much am I worth per hour, how long it will take me, like give a good estimate and tell that person it's going to take me this X amount of time to do it. So it's like the time and what I think is worth per hour, and that be that. If it's my own work that I'm trying to sell, and this is something that I learned from my fiance. He is a muralist. He used to work here. He's an artist. And he told me, and I didn't, this was such a good idea. How much would it be for someone to buy your work, then throw it in the dumpster, throw it in the shredder? Just take it like, oh, okay, cool, I like this. And then just toss it. How does that feel if you were like, oh, no. If that's like 5,000, then that's what it is. Like for you to mentally like, okay, I would do that for 5,000. I would do that for 2,000 or whatever the case.
Right. Oh, that's very interesting. I like that kind of mentality of like, how much would it hurt you?
Yeah, how much is it for someone to take it? Yeah. Just right. So.
Oh man, how interesting.
So segueing into our next artist that we want to talk about. His name is Samuel Baird, and I found him on Instagram. I love it because there's these hidden faces amongst all of this paint drip. And he does a paint drip style, same thing, but cooler than Jackson in my opinion.
And you know why it's cooler? At least to me, it has some structure. And maybe that says a lot about me as a person, that I just need the structure. I like that has some chaos too.
Oh, yeah.
But it is not just completely unbridled chaos. And there's subject matter. And use of color is great.
Yes, I was about to say that. I feel like with Jackson, there was no sense of color or anything like that. I feel like the colors are very intentional here with each piece. And I just like how things are just hidden. Like, not very much in the forefront. It's like background faces that you subtly kind of see amongst all the chaos.
A little bit of a creepy vibe.
Yes. I don't know. There's something, it's creepy on some of them. Some of them I feel are like very sensual. Just because you don't see, I don't know, you don't see everything.
Yeah, and that's
kind of hidden.
something artists have been using for millennia. Basically is, less is more.
Yeah.
And giving a hint of something can actually be much more provocative than the whole thing.
Yes.
Horror movies do it all the time.
Oh, yeah.
You don't show the scary thing. You just show what's happening around the scary thing and then get people all...
Yeah, that's how it feels with these pieces. They feel like that. It's like that moment where it's like... but then like nothing really happens.
Hitchcock comes with total master at that suspense. And it does. There is a sense of suspense with this artwork. That's interesting. I would never have initially thought that, but that connection totally makes sense.
Yes, it's very alluring in that way.
It is. It totally is. It really draws you in a way that I don't feel the Jackson Pollock.
Oh, no.
No. Those are kind of flat to me. Well, I mean, it is flat.
Yeah.
And even these tell a color story. So there's not a lot of colors used, but the choice of colors really, it's almost monochromatic, analogous, I guess, for this one. You got your cool color scheme with mostly blues, but just that hint of green. And then the same thing with like the red tones too.
Yeah, and you can see shadow and highlights as well on this. It's like there's substance and there's depth to this other than just painting a bunch of squiggly lines.
Do you know offhand if he names them?
I do not.
Because that could add a whole nother dimension to things too. What was his intent when he created it, or is he just making pretty pictures? Oh man, yeah, look at that one. Let's click on that one.
Yeah,
it kindle and it's flames, or
that's what I'm reading.
I mean, kind of flamey.
Yeah, Someone commented gorgeous energy, and that I think that's it's inner. I don't know. It
is an energy.
It's an essence of
it's vibrant. Yes. Yeah, even though fire in its nature is very chaotic and the drip bits are chaotic. Like it still has that underlying structure, which I think just really ties it all together.
Yeah.
Me and my structure, I guess. I don't know. I never considered myself that kind of person, but here we are. Ooh.
Right.
Now this has a lot more colors in it.
Yes, it does.
And it almost gives me Van Gogh vibes.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the color palette.
Well, I'm wondering. It's very similar. Kind of thinking about because we do a lot of Van Gogh here.
We sure do.
Like almost every day. Yeah, that blue background. Yeah. And the white on top, and then the colors on top of the blue. I think that's kind of what we're thinking. We have like background, and then the
yellow.
On top of it.
It also has some of the same movement too. Like the eyebrow slash kind of reminds me of the swirls. You've got the circular bit for the eye, just like celestial stuff in Van Gogh's. Yeah. It's a very expressionist version.
Yeah,
they are very expressive of it. The eye.
Yeah,
that is like the perfect focal point. It's just off center, which brings interest to the work.
Yes,
and it's the only green in that whole thing.
It draws you in, brings attention to that, and then your eyes kind of expand out.
Yes, the green. Kind of take it all in. And that's actually a comment a guest made the other day when we were painting. So it was one of your paintings, and it was a fall scene with a little path and the birch trees. So, we spent all this time dabbing our little trees, and some people are a little faster than others. So I actually encourage them to, if you're waiting for the next step, why don't you get up, walk around, look at what everybody else is doing. And so they did, and they were like, ooh, and it was so fun to watch them like compliment each other. So cool. And I think it just like really created a great atmosphere. But once we put the birch trees in, I was like, now it all comes together, and everybody's like, yeah, now I like it.
Yes.
And one lady was like, it gives you a place to rest, because everything else in the background was kind of the same, oranges, and the birch trees just gave you a break. casually, mentally, and I think giving a place to rest was just like the perfect phrase to put it all together, and that's exactly what we get with him rather than Pollock. You get a place to rest.
Yes. From all of us here at Purple Easel, thank you so much for tuning in.
Check out the links below for our artists today, Jackson Pollock and Samuel Baird.
Join us at purpleeaselplus.com to paint with the world's largest paint and sip studio online.
And come visit us in Southern California at our studio. In the meantime, create more and create often.
Bye. But is it art? But is it art?